Let's start. Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to San Francisco Independent Short Film Festival. I'm Katie from Festival Formula, and today we're going to be speaking to some of the filmmakers featured in the block Growth and Challenges 1. So I have a very gentle icebreaker for our guests to answer, and it is very gentle. If you could live anywhere in the world for a year, where would that be?
Well, I guess I'll start. I would actually love to try living in Southern California for a year. I've never lived there, visited many times, but never had the opportunity to live there. So I'd like to try it just for a year and see how it goes.
Okay, interesting.
Go ahead.
I'm just a producer, so I'll get to you. Go ahead. I'll defer.
I would like to live in Japan for a year. I've traveled far and wide, but not to Japan, and I find their culture fascinating and more advanced in some of the ways that we haven't caught up to yet, as far as urban development and living together. And
yeah,
smart cities and things like that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I'm just letting Thibaut in now. We were supposed to be in Japan this year, and we unfortunately had to cancel it because of the pandemic. But we went last year, and it was an absolutely beautiful place to go to, and that's where I would also want to love to live for a year. Hi, Thibaut.
Hi, nice to meet you.
That's all right. Could you do me a quick favor and just change your name to the title of your film? So Thibaut and the title.
Oh, can I change it?
I can do that for you if you want, actually.
It's okay.
So you've just come in at the right time of being the last person to answer the icebreaker question. So that was, if you could live anywhere in the world for a year, where would that be?
If I could live anywhere in the world, you mean?
Yeah. For a year, just 1 year, you could live anywhere that you wanted to in the world.
I don't know. I never been to Australia. I wanted to go to Australia recently.
That's a good point, actually. Good weather.
Yeah, good landscape.
Yeah.
And people seems nice. Actually, my short film was made with Australian actors, and they were
I recognize the name, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. So Ben, did you answer, didn't you?
Yes, yeah. I think my answer was probably the worst of the group, but I did answer.
Yeah, but you went with the weather. That's something good. It's integral to this. Okay, brilliant. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about your films and kind of, what my response was, but also just kind of some questions that I have for you. So I'm going to talk about In the Night first. I'm going to do them in block order. So this is a heady, intimate game of cat and mouse that sees a connection between two strangers and presents us with what first is a very unique bond. What unfurls without a word being uttered is that these two very much have a history that was stopped short through tragedy. And what I found absolutely hypnotic about this film is that these moments you captured without lack of dialogue, and about how that really heightened the emotion. Did you have a script? I'm asking as a previous script writer. Did you have a script? And if you didn't, did you work with the actors to create like a baseline story that they could kind of work with?
No, I had a script. I like what you see in the movie is really what the script was about. Like it was just with no dialogue and just telling the action of each people. Yeah.
So did you work with the actors to kind of talk about like the backstory that they had? Because obviously what we see is kind of very fragmented in the presentation. Did you kind of work with them about what happened, when, what the relationship was?
Yeah, sure. We spoke a lot with Nash and Isabel, but what I like also is that we really know few things. We know that of course she died. We know there is a car accident, and just with that, we can understand the situation is pretty simple, and we know that kind of story in a lot of different movies. So we can totally like imagine what they went through and etc. So with just one flashback and one photo, we can understand the relationship, the story, and So I like that instead of explaining everything in detail and having a long flashback, we know they were happy, we know he's sad, we know everything. So
I think it handled the exposition like perfectly, because when you watch a film and it like bangs you over the head about what you need to know, and it kind of feels a little bit kind of clunky. So with your film, did you have any time to rehearse? Because you know, the relationship very kind of ethereal between the two, that kind of physicality. Did you have time to rehearse, or was it literally got the script, just went straight on to the shoot?
we just had like how do you say a day for the wardrobe stuff, you know. So we met, and actually Nash knew Isabel before, so they had like they knew each other, so that was good.
Oh, that's good.
And they are both from Australia. And then we pretty much each time we went in each location, we rehearsed like few times before like shooting, but that's it. We didn't have like a full day of rehearsal.
No. And where did you shoot it?
We shot it like 2 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And whereabouts was the shoot?
What?
Where was the shoot? The location?
It was in New York City.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Great. And did you take any inspiration from anywhere else putting this together?
From what do you mean?
Like, did you kind of use any other films as a point of reference when you were coming to make this film?
Oh yeah, well I loved, there is a French movie I love, it's called Feu Follet in French, and I think in English it's called The Fire Within Me from Louis Malle. And it's the film had a kind of a remake. It was from Joachim Trier, Oslo, 31 August. And it's just one day of a guy who before he killed himself actually, but he was just like a guy walking in the street, going back to his friend and having discussion. And yeah, I think I forgot I think, yeah, we had like a lot of references, like what else? I know in French the titles actually. I'm from Paris actually, so this is why my English is very bad. We are not good in English here.
I think you're doing well.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm gonna move on to Beneath the Surface.
Yeah.
So David, this is a documentary that takes us through the history and journey of diagnosing multiple sclerosis through the eyes of several people within that community and medical profession. There were some really kind of poignant lines in there that really kind of summed up brilliantly. And one of the ones that stuck in my mind is, I used to be Comedy Central and now I'm Sesame Street, which it's just, you know, it's got that punch of a killer joke, but it's got that kind of veracity of like just truthfulness, which is really, really harsh. What I found really meta about this documentary is that all of your subjects talk about sharing stories and about how reaching out to connect with people helps them. And then there's a reference to the West Wing. So what I wanted to ask you, because I'm a massive West Wing fan, is how did you find these particular stories and how did you choose to focus in on them? Because I can only imagine you must have had a lot of stories to kind of sift through and actually kind of put together.
Well, that's a good question. There were a lot of possible characters, and I talked with more than the ones that appeared in the film, some by phone, some just by email, and tried to get a sense of who would contribute to the whole story. I mean, you can't tell everyone's story start to finish, so they all contribute a moment to telling a story start to finish, of course. And then started meeting people in the field and figuring out, you know, what part of their story contributes to the story. You know, Diana is the one that said that line, and there were a lot of tears shed by her and some by the crew, you know, because it's emotional. And, you know, you get this trust between the person and you talking about these very personal things. And so, yeah, we got to, you know each character quite well, and still in touch and still cheering for them. And it's a good process.
And I suppose as well, when you're working on a documentary that deals with something quite emotional or something that's so incredibly personal, and sometimes it does take a while for people to kind of be coaxed out of their shell and talk about it. I mean, is your background documentary anyway?
Yes, and I'm a lawyer, for better or for worse, too.
Okay, so I mean, I suppose my next question was, when you're a documentarian and you need to kind of garner these stories from people, you need to make them feel comfortable and feel that they're in a safe space to kind of share their kind of innermost thoughts, really. I suppose you could say the same about a lawyer. but
Well, but the thing about documentary is you can choose your characters, and lawyers can't, or can't so much. But it helps if you're really interested. I was genuinely curious about MS. I don't know anyone with the condition. I don't know much about it, and now I do. And I got to go on the learning experience by meeting these wonderful people. And I think they can trust your genuine curiosity, and that translates into care. And I was genuinely interested in what they were going through, and I think that helped us communicate.
Definitely. I mean, it's kind of it's a stark contrast, because I kind of feel like this block is about what's beneath the layer that we see, that the human complexities of what we're willing to share and what we're willing to kind of really suppress. And our ability to either fight it or open up. So, with the narrative side of things, it is about that kind of obstruction of, are we being honest with ourselves? Can we be open with those feelings? Can we engage and connect with other people? And then you have something like Beneath the Surface, which is like that, but it's actually, we're seeing those people reveal themselves and actually be honest and open.
Well, I did want to take the chance to compliment both the films. I did watch both Maggie and In the Night, and they're wonderful. And narrative is intimidating to a documentary filmmaker. So I don't know how you guys managed to make such a realistic set of stories there. So I compliment you on that. I mean, my job in documentary is to get out of the way. It's to recognize what's important, but really get out of the way. Let people take you on their journey. I'm not taking them on any journey. And it's quite the opposite of what you guys are doing in your construction.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting, because I was going to say, like, moving on to Maggie, is that, so this is a young woman that gets sucked into the unsavory life of drugs and prostitution, and the two feeding each other, and that intense story of ownership that affections can have over each other and circumstance. And obviously this has kind of been created around kind of realistic stories. And so there's kind of a blending of the two, really, that kind of like documentary aspect of the research and the real life stories and the narrative retelling. So this is a very grand story. I kind of feel like I would have happily watched a lot longer of this, and a bigger kind of landscape, and of course rooted in elements of truth. So are there any plans to make this into a bigger story or tell more of these stories?
And it's funny you asked that. When we were making it, we talked a lot about that. And one of the problems with it, from a director's point of view, is it just kept getting longer and longer and longer as a short. It's 20, almost 23 minutes long. And, we joked a number of times that, why don't we just make this into a feature? Because there's a lot there to tell. And that was one of the challenges from an editing and a storytelling perspective, was making it not seem like 23 minutes. And a lot of the feedback we got was that even though it is rather lengthy for a short, that it doesn't feel that long. So that that was probably one of the biggest parts of feedback that I got, that I really took appreciation from. But yeah, I would love to, and I know that the actors and the folks that helped with some of the research, I know that they all would love to see more of the character. So yeah, it's certainly a possibility. No plans in the immediate future, but.
Well, you've got a fan here, I can say that. So can you tell us how you worked with the Avery Center for Research and Services, just to kind of expand on like how that came about and how that process was?
Yeah, absolutely. So they're a nonprofit in a neighboring town that they help survivors of human trafficking, commercial sexual exploitation, whatever you want to call it. And they, I sat down with them to basically, I ran through them with, ran the script by them and talked about some of the different scenarios that we were going to show, and just to make sure that, you know, it was authentic in as far as could this stuff really happen? Maybe not in, you know, some of the dramatic license that we took, but, you know, are these things that really happen to people and could really happen to people? So they were instrumental in that, and they also actually helped with the casting, which we had one of the women that helped with casting was an actual survivor. She had been trafficked across the United States 6 or 7 years ago, and when we auditioned the male Mark for the role of Daddy, the pimp, she actually had to leave the room. His scene that he auditioned was pretty intense, and she said he's perfect. I mean, he is you know, pretty much exactly what you know, what I experienced from time to time in living that life. So you were really instrumental in helping with the authenticity of it.
I mean, that's great to be able to have that insight to actually kind of make sure that it is being honest and true. Which again, like kind of, you know, straddles this idea of, you know, with the documentary is a different medium, but it's still kind of pertaining to telling the truth. I'm just going to mention the one film that the filmmaker couldn't attend, which is Kintsugi, which is by Nadia Bobieleva. So just kind of to preface it, is a therapist charged with treating victims of sexual abuse, has her own experience that unearths past trauma and challenges her approach and process to heal. A human representation of the artistic Japanese practice of repairing what has been broken and embracing imperfections. So as I kind of said at the top, like a lot of this kind of block together, whilst we have like a melee of documentary and narrative feature and very different kind of strands, it is about that kind of human connection to, you know, either because we crave it or because we need it. And I'm just wondering if I know some of you've already mentioned, but have you watched each other's films, and do you have any kind of comments or kind of questions for each other?
Yeah, so just to begin with, In the Night, and how do you say your first name, Thibaut?
Yeah, Thibaut.
Thibaut. So I was also impressed with the fact that there was no dialogue. That was what I noticed right off the bat, and just, I mean, the look of it was fantastic, but the fact that there was no dialogue and the story still came across in the way that it did, I was very, very impressed with that. And then David, I just hearing the stories of people that go through that, and I don't know anybody personally either, but I've seen other stories about how devastating that can be and kind of the progressive nature of it. Just, you know, it's heartbreaking to see that. It's just, you really did a great job conveying that in the way that you filmed it and you know, and shot it. So congratulations. I mean, great films for both you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, Thibaut, you shot in the New York City subway. That's not easy, huh?
Yeah. We get kicked out at some point, but we managed to do what we needed to. So that's, and just to say, I see both of your movies too. That was really interesting because that's two movies about two subjects that I didn't really know about too, and two important subjects that we need to see movies more about it. So thank you for sharing that kind of stories. And it was very well done and very like professional to me, and very like, so I'm really glad to be like in front of all these short movies.
You both had really good sound. Did you do much sound design?
Yeah, so that was one of the things I made sure that I paid somebody well enough to do, that I knew that it was going to be done the right way. We tried to, obviously we had a tiny budget, but made sure we didn't skimp on sound just because of how important it is. So I will pass that on to him. He will appreciate that comment because he takes a lot of pride in his sound recording. I did the initial edit. He kind of gave me a polished version of it, but yeah, but you know, I'll definitely pass it on to him. So thank you.
Yeah, and for me, I have no dialogue, but sound was very important because when you have no dialogue, well, you can hear everything. So the noise of the city, everything. So yeah, that was very important to me to work on that with someone very good.
I mean, I will say that, you know, I just to echo kind of everyone's thoughts they've already said, that whilst this block is smaller, you know, there are kind of, you know, 4 films, they all had like production values which are just envious. Because in my job, you know, running a consultancy company, I have to watch an awful lot of films, and a lot of the films are awful. So being able to kind of like be an audience member for a change and actually just kind of like, you know, let them wash over me, they all kind of have their own poignancies and their own kind of strengths that really do kind of complement each other. And I know this is a really horrible question that every filmmaker gets asked, but people are interested. What are you working on next? If you're working on anything next?
First, I'm just happy to hear that we're not awful. That's good.
Yeah, me too. I'm working on a short film that I want to shoot in Paris, but the actress is actually in the USA, so I have to wait for the borders to open to shoot it. But at least I can prepare the shoot and find more money and etc. But we're definitely gonna do it when everything will be better.
Can you tell us what it's about, or you know, like, is it narrative? Is it?
It's narrative, yeah, and yeah. I don't really like to speak about my.
No, that's fine. No, that's enough. That's enough. Just the fact that you're making more film is just enough for me. That's good.
Okay.
Who else is making anything?
So I've working on a couple of music videos right now. That's kind of the majority of my experience is in music videos and promotional videos. I have another short film in the works, and to be honest, I'm hoping to at some point make a feature. You know, we're not in an area where that happens all that often. I will give a shout out to my producer RW here. Just filmed a feature in our small corner of Colorado, and it's doing really well. So I want to try to follow in this guy's footsteps and do a feature at some point, but probably a few years down the road for me.
Okay, cool. You sound busy.
I have a feature doc set in West Virginia that's just finishing in the last month of post, and it's got a few film festivals lined up, and it's got some great music by Steve Earle and Iris Dement and some other things, and so I'm just finishing putting the piece in place on that.
Amazing. And can I ask, like, what area of lawyer are you specializing in?
Well, I began as a criminal defense attorney as a public defender in Manhattan, a court-appointed lawyer, but left that behind and became more of a film entertainment lawyer just by nature of producing and sometimes directing films.
I thought that's what I was kind of angling at, because I kind of thought at some point you would have made that leap to kind of combine the two, because it is an area that's really needed, especially in documentary, for clearance and, you know, music rights and everything else. Would you ever fully like drop the lawyer part, or?
It's hard to get out, you know, it's in there, you know, and it comes up in useful ways. I don't want to drop it, you know, it's just helpful. You know, it's kind of more of a way of thinking, and it is useful to get some things done. But it's all these are forms of storytelling. I mean, everyone here is a storyteller, and, you know, you're telling stories in court, you're telling stories in documentary, and you're telling stories in narrative. It all comes down to telling stories, so. It's
so true, so true. And again, this might be a question that you might not be able to answer because of embargoes, but where is your film playing next if people wanted to check it out in another block somewhere?
Outside of here.
Outside of this festival, yeah.
Yeah. Thibaut, where next?
I don't know. For now, I don't have any other festival.
Oh, okay.
Ours played locally at a film festival here in Northern Colorado. And obviously we're really excited that San Fran picked it up. It's fantastic. Right now, just waiting to hear back from, I think, 7 or 8 other festivals that we submitted it to. So having fingers crossed at this point.
Okay, fingers crossed then. David, any other festivals on the horizon?
San Francisco Indie Shorts. That's where we're going. That's it right now. That's my focus, and I'm grateful to be in. So
fantastic, brilliant. Well, have you got any other questions for each other?
I don't have any questions, just more compliments. You guys did a great job. I really enjoyed your film, so thanks for sharing.
Same to you, David.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.
Oh,
Keep making more.
yes. Do you know what? You are the first bundle of filmmakers that have actually watched each other's films, and it's really, really heartwarming because I think like when you're like, this is a kind of PSA for filmmakers. If you're in a block and you've been selected by a festival, watch your fellow filmmakers' films.
It's like wearing a mask. You got to do it.
Yeah, exactly. It's so simple, it's so easy, but also they are your comrades. They are, you know, you're in it together. It's a community. I've really enjoyed talking to all of you, and I could talk for much longer, but I'm only given a certain amount of time, unfortunately. My leash is only so little. So it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to all of you, and I wish you a great festival, and thank you to the audience for watching this Q&A afterwards, and we do hope that you tune in to what else the festival has to offer. So thank you once again, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.